minds expand beyond their horizons. So, Sandy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, ST. I appreciate it.
No, so it is very interesting that what you're building right now is like you're trying to help out kids and develop themselves beyond what they're develop themselves beyond their potential, I would say.
Yeah, or developing what's already inside of them, right, and bringing it out at a young age. Because when you do that, and then it becomes part of who they are, right, and then it just sticks with them into adulthood.
So
everyone's got that inside of them.
And so you said you've written like several children's books, and like you've tell me about like what is like that what is like so what it is like
To write a book.
Yeah.
It's very long process. It's a lot of work, but and you really have to enjoy writing, which I do. So I started out in 2011. I've always wanted to write a children's book, but I wanted to, I was just busy when my children were little, and finally when they grew up, I had still wanted to write it. So you have to kind of get in mind what you want to write about. And I wanted mine to teach goodness to young children. So that's how I came up. I just kept throwing the word good around, and that's how I came up with the Good Eggs series. So it's a series of 3, and I have, that's broken down into chapters. So they're chapter books. And we are video, right? I can show you these.
Yeah, we're video, but also it's going to come out in audio as well.
Okay. Well, they're a series of 3 books, and they have 12 chapters, and each one is broken down by a month of the year. So it starts in September when they go back to school, and then the next month will be October, November, and each month will highlight in book 1 a different virtue. So for example, they go back to school in September and they learn about understanding. So a little situation occurs, and they're all children's situations that little kids can relate to. So when something will occur in their own lives, they could think back on the Good Eggs. How did they handle that situation and try to resolve it that way? But it's a long process. It took me 2 years to write the first book and to get it out and published.
Yeah.
And then after that, books 2 and 3, I was just kind of on a roll. Those came out in 1 year after that.
So the funny thing is I'm in the process of writing a book myself, and it took me a year just to really plan the idea out, because I had to go out and get the proper inspiration to be able to design the space of what my book is about. And it's kind of like how you're doing it with these children's books, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it takes a while. Like I had to plan it out. Exactly what did I want to teach? What did I want them to learn? How did I want to format it? And I decided to do it like a school year. And that's how I did it, from September. And then they also go through the summer to August. So it's 12 months. Each book has the year's schedule in it. So the second book, though, they win a recycling contest in book 1, and in book 2, the United Nations recognizes them for that and sends them on a trip around the world. So they go to 10 countries, and they learn all about diversity from people all around the world. And so that's really cool. That was fun. I had to do a lot of research in that book, just looking up customs and language and ways of doing things in other parts of the world. So that was really interesting.
And so now that we are building the Good Egg Foundation, like what is what type of support do you really offer with the Good Egg Foundation?
So what I offer is I do what I call eggings, once a month, since my books are based once a month, each chapter. Once a month, I will seek out either a family, or sometimes I get emails, people that need help, or an organization that helps kids in need. And I say, you've been egged, and I get them what they need, up to a certain amount. Right now, it's a little smaller. I'm more hoping to grow as time goes on. So, for example, there's a man here who builds beds for kids coming out of homelessness, and he needed some bedding for that. So I went and got a whole bunch of those bed in the bags, with the comforter and the sheets, and got pillows and blankets, and I brought them all to him. I said, here, you've been egged. So I got him all that. I've done diaper drives for people. I've done summer camps for kids.
Oh, summer camps. Those are fun.
They always need like snacks and water and stuff like that. So we've done a lot of that. I've helped with a math tutoring program for kids. So there's all kinds. It's different each month, which is what I like, because I'm meeting so many awesome people that are helping children. I started with a lending library for kids.
What is a lend? Like, what does it normally do at a lending library?
So a lending library, it depends. They're all different, but normally they're like a wooden box type, and there's all different books in there. And kids can come. Sometimes they're in a school. Sometimes they're like outside in a library. Sometimes they're at a park. And you just come and get a book out. There's adult ones as well. And you read it, and you will go and bring it.
I think I remember this. It's kind of similar to one of my, what I call those Dropbox kind of structures where, it's like there's one in my old neighborhood back in California. Like we had several kids who lived in the neighborhood. What they did was they donated some of their books to that library. Yeah. It was like to that lending library in the middle of the neighborhood, in that Dropbox, where I just walk by every time I walked by back then and just saw like, oh, there are several books out there I could just get for myself.
Right. And then the hope is then you bring them back, right? Or you bring back one that you're done with. It's completely honor system where people just read one, and you don't have to go and buy all these books, right? You can just lend them. So I think it's a cool concept.
So that's very interesting, very fascinating. But I just want to get to know more about Sandy herself. Like, what made you really become the person you are? Like, what was your overall background?
So I grew up in St. Clair Shores, which is a city outside of Detroit, Michigan. And, typical growing up neighborhood, childhood. But I always, I just loved when I was in school to write stories. Our teacher gave us an assignment with spelling words, and she'd say, create a story with spelling words. So I used to love that. And so I always loved to write stories. And I knew it was something I wanted to do as I got older. So that feeling actually never left me. And I always feel like I was always in tune with other people's needs as well. I always remember my mom, you get things in the mail like to send to March of Dimes or, American Cancer Society. You get these charitable things in the mail. My mom would always write a check for every single one. And she would say, I'm just really thankful that, my kids are healthy and we're doing okay. So she would always do that. So I think I kind of saw that. It was modeled for me. So I kind of feel like I feel very grateful for being everything I have. So I want to give back as well. And I like to focus it on children so that we can start with that youngest generation and that they can get that idea of going outside of themselves or developing what's in them to help others.
It's kind of like the charitable mindset.
Yeah. It's just putting goodness and kindness and just being a good person all the way around would really, I think, calm down our world. If it can become part of their personality and who they are, that's great, because it only does positive things in our world.
And so you held a master's degree from the University of Detroit, and you also taught morality, ethics, and social justice courses at a private high school in Michigan. What was that experience?
I still am. So I'm still a full-time high school teacher. So I kind of feel like I have two full-time jobs right now. I teach, and then I also run the Good Eggs. So quite a bit. But I love all of it. So I teach at a private school right now, an all-girls school, and it's wonderful. It's great. So the students are great. And, I can teach, I'm in the theology department, and I teach a world religions course. I teach moral theology courses. So it's a lot of fun.
So it's like you're combining like the practices, I won't say the practice, but the, what do you call the spirituality with the charity into one in a way, right?
Yeah, right. So it's kind of one big picture, right? All the aspects of my life kind of all fit together.
And so how do you manage to really balance, doing this and running the foundation, and why?
It's a lot. Sometimes I get very overwhelmed. So I'll do, teaching by day, and then I come home at night and I work on the Good Eggs. And then on weekends, I work on the Good Eggs.
And you said your kids have moved out of the house, right?
Yeah, my kids are grown. Yeah.
Okay.
So my husband now. Yeah. So, it's It's a lot of work, but I wouldn't change it because I love doing it, and it's in my heart, so I know I couldn't stop doing it. In fact, I just got book 1 made into 12 animated videos, and now there's a video series for book 1. So,
Well, you designed it or someone else did?
I got an animator. I wrote all the scripts,
Yep.
but an animator did all the characters. So they just got picked up too by the Michigan Learning Channel, which is an affiliate of PBS. So
Okay, yeah. PBS is like, that was my childhood.
yeah. So I'm trying to get book 2 into animation now. So I'm going to start looking for grants to provide for that. Because it's expensive, animation, but it's...
I think life is pretty much expensive.
yeah, got that right.
No, just living in. I think my dad once told me that everything costs money except the air you breathe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So with everything going up and up and up, like, okay, at least I can still breathe.
Right. You woke up today, right? That's a plus.
I still made it alive to be able to do this podcast. But anyway.
Yeah.
But let's just say now with the Good Egg Foundation, like in terms of building the Good Egg Foundation, what is the overall big vision, big picture of what you're doing?
So with the Good Eggs, I would love to see it grow larger and larger and larger. I have a lot of visions with my children's books because the proceeds from the children's books goes into the Good Eggs Foundation, the net proceeds. So the more books I sell, the more the foundation gets funded. So that's one thing. I want to really beef up the books and get them out there to the wider world so that, more funds go into the foundation. And then I can do even bigger eggings. I would love to do playgrounds, like in schools that really couldn't afford to put in like a nice playground. I'd love to do scholarships for kids. There's so many things I would love to do with more funding. So I have a big vision there. I even have a vision of seeing the eggs on live theater shows, the live stage. So
it's like the eggs have to be the point of reference for everything, right?
Yes, they are lovable characters. You would love them.
It's like you're trying to do is, I mean, there could be stage performance. Like you currently live in Detroit, Michigan, right? Like inside a city or outside?
I'm outside the city. I'm in a suburb.
Okay, if you're a suburb, then there's always those town centers, like so small suburban centers where you can have these performances.
For sure. So that's all on my radar.
And so why do you feel right now building this foundation is so necessary for the people, let's say for the people in Michigan around the world?
I just feel it's universal to all people that, the more you grow up and learn about people and places and things, that people just all want the same thing, really, that we're really more similar than we are not. And I think people tend to look at division rather than cohesion. So I think we need to really look at what we have in common, because that's what makes us connected. And I think that if kids learn that at a young age, they're the builders of tomorrow, right? They're going to create our societies for tomorrow. So if they can have that in mind, not to look at other people with judgment, or suspicion, to really open your mind and look at different viewpoints and perspectives, it can really, settle some stress in our world. And I think starting with kids is where to go, because oftentimes adults, they don't get it sometimes. They're just kind of stuck in their ways.
I mean, they live in a world back. I mean, if you notice, like the world has changed drastically since they grew up. So they kind of have not adopted to the change yet.
Yeah, and it's understandable. People change slowly, but I think starting with young ones, that we can help them see a bigger picture and help them have a broader mind, so that stays with them when they're the ones creating policy and, creating relationships with others. So
how are you doing that in a way where it encourages the kids to really, go beyond where they are?
Well, the lessons that are learned in the books really emulate that on a child's level. There's a character here, his name is Benedict, and he's kind of the troubled egg And so his friends help him get through things. He gets angry a lot. He gets runs away from situations a lot. And they really use their just their kid-like tactics to try to see where he's coming from. And they end up really helping him at the end of the book. He really learns and he grows. So just by helping them realize these lessons, I've had parents write to me, I've had teachers write to me saying that, wow, my son said, hey, Mom, that was just like the Good Eggs, what they did when they fed the homeless people, or, like something, whatever the case was, I had that put into action. I even had a 5th grade class do all of the service that's in book 3. They collected pet supplies for an animal shelter. They collected food supplies for a food bank. They put together welcome baskets for the elderly in their community. So that's exactly what I wanted for kids to. That's why I did the foundation, because I put the books into action, and then I want kids to put it into action.
Got it. And so this is more about, like, you're just teaching the kids. Kids will just use that to be able to build build their own kind of vision, what they're doing.
Yeah, put goodness into the world, put kindness into the world, put compassion into the world.
And so what is it like? What is like the criteria to basically select a program or organization or family to get?
Children. So it's got to be serving children is really my only criteria. So like with the bedding with the kids. I've done, trying to think, I've done so many, the ones I told you, right? Anything that has to do with kids, I'm there. So I did, this one family, they were getting a new start in life, and I decorated the kids' bedrooms. They really never had a bedroom before. The one boy, he loved video games. So I did, I got the comforter that was all video game themed, and I got decals for his walls. And the girl wanted hearts for her room, so I get a whole heart comforter and heart decals.
This is a family in which, like, they were like a poor family, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were living in a shelter, and then they got into some, like an apartment type of situation. Like it was like a subsidy, and then they finally were able to get a house through an organization here called Habitat for Humanity.
Oh yeah, I used to.
It's a large organization.
I used to help. I think I used to help them. Help one of those organizations, like a similar organization back in Appalachia.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want. Where they had to do was remodel and redesign the house so that the people could go and at least make it because it's a very deprived, like what do you call it, deprived community, or like a huge there's large areas of deprivation. And considering the fact that it's not a very stable environment with mudslides happening every time, so we kind of had to go out there and build out a wall to be able to protect the house from mudslides.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think I remember that was one project that I remember doing back when I was as a college student during spring break.
Awesome. See, that's awesome you did that. So that's what this Habitat was doing, was helping them. The mom, she was a single mom with 3 kids, and she actually got a nice promotion at her job, and she was finally able to afford like a house payment. So she got the kids all situated, and I decorated their rooms. So that was really, they were so happy and excited, because I don't know if they've ever really had their own bedroom, to call their own. So things like make them feel valued, make them feel loved.
Yeah, and also, why do you feel like your organization is like the key for a lot of kids to be able to get themselves off of them? Get them more compassionate about the world, because there's plenty of organizations out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if mine's key, but it's part of the wheel, right? Everyone who has a spoke in the wheel, hopefully that's all a positive spoke, and that we can all put our goodness in there together and create that positive spin.
So it's kind of like what you're trying to, the one thing about charity, the good thing about charities is that you're not competing against them, right?
No.
It's not. Compared to, let's say, if you're in the business world where you have to compete against other people to be able to be successful. Yeah. Here, all you have to do is just basically collaborate and work together. And And so it's what you're trying to do is just make it more like as one entity out of one entity combined with other millions of entities out there.
Yeah, it's supportive. So, you know, everyone's got their, like, I would gear toward children's things. Other people might gear toward, you know, maybe getting GEDs for adults who didn't graduate high school. I mean, there's so many different causes. So I would gear toward children and basic education and basic needs for them to feel comfortable. So that's where I would gear toward. But yeah, it's just supporting one another and reaching out and seeing where I could help.
And so I'm just wondering, in your mind, why is it that even with a lot of organizations out there helping out a lot of people, why is there still hatred? Why is there like badness coming out? What do you think coming out?
See, I don't know. I think sometimes people get indoctrinated into ideologies that, I don't know, they just don't make sense. I think greed, sometimes people get caught up in greed or selfishness and they can't break through that. I don't know. I mean, everyone would have to answer for themselves, I guess, why they do things.
I mean,
but
would you ever feel like they could be a world where everybody is good?
That'd be nice. I mean, I think everybody can be good, right? It's just that we get so wrapped up in materialism a lot of times, I think, that we cover it up and we don't see the real needs of others. And then we get judgmental. So if we could learn to get past that, which is huge hurdles, that's why I start with kids, to start when they're young.
And so, I mean, usually because there are always examples of kids out there who were taught to be good, but then as adults, they become kind of resentful. Like there is always that stage in life.
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone's story is different. You know, it depends on your upbringing, depends on your environment, depends on what you've gone through. You know, people who have endured terrible abuses, right? They can get angry. They can act out. And a lot of times that's what happens. Sometimes mental health comes into play in some of these situations. So it's important to get help there. There's so many different situations that can play out depending on each person's life. So it's hard. I mean, it's not easy. It's hard to stay good and kind and compassionate all the time. We all struggle with that.
I mean, even you and I all kind of struggle also with it. Okay, there are times where
go well, you might get angry or you're like, what did they do that for? Or, you know, of course, that's normal. But overall, to try to put goodness into the world is what I try to do.
And so what, just want to know, when did you start working with children?
Oh gosh, long time ago, probably 2000, let's see, when my son was 4 and he is 30 now. So 26 years ago, maybe.
So that's a lot. I mean, even now you still work with kids in a way,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, teenagers today, yeah.
So, was there a spark or specific situation that kind of made you create and start the Good Eggs Foundation?
Well, like I said, I just knew I always wanted to write children's books. So after I wrote the series of 3, I felt like I still wasn't done with them. And I said, you know what, I'm going to put the books into action. And I want to start a foundation and I want to help kids because the books are for kids.
So the main
books kind of catapulted.
So the books are like the branding, while the Good Eggs is more like the charities, like the charity.
The Good Eggs book series is the branding, yeah, and then the foundation is called the Good Eggs Foundation, yeah. That came off of the book series.
And so, how many people are aware of your foundation in your area?
Well, I've had some success I've been on local TV, I've been on local radio. I don't know the number of how many people that would be, but, I have a newsletter that goes out. It's fairly widespread. I've done over 35 eggings, which is another thing. I like to use that word to put a positive spin on the word egging. Sometimes you think of that, right? That's a negative.
Yeah, you got to egg your way out of this or something.
Yeah. So, I like to put that you've been egged with, right, something positive. So yeah, I'm ready to branch out into other cities as well.
All right, cool. That's kind of what I think that's what the world needs is more eggs.
Yeah, I would love like chapters over, to different cities.
Okay, so if you were to do like from Detroit and say go down up here to Columbus, Ohio, then that's where I'm at currently. You'd be like, okay, do you have like a particular egg for Columbus?
A Columbus egg? No, they're all. I mean, they all have egg in their name. You got Peggy, and Reggie, and Meg with 2 G's, and Gregory with 2 G's, and then Sigourney and Benedict. So there's 3 boys and 3 girls, and their teacher is named Miss Poach, and they just have all kinds of fun, and they learn all kinds of interesting things. So the series takes you through here's the 3rd book, through 3 years of their lives that they learn and grow. So it's really a fun series for kids. I've gotten great feedback on it.
Cool. And so what are your plans for the next 5 to 10 years with the Good Egg Foundation?
The Good Eggs Foundation, I want to grow it larger, right? More awareness, bigger eggings, like I said. And that's going to come through the book series, I believe, because the more books I sell, the more funding the foundation gets, which will then allow me to do bigger eggings. So that's what I'm going to focus my vision on.
All right, cool. So I think we're going to wrap up this podcast and just going to ask you a final question. So what advice would you give to people with big visions and really want to achieve something and sometimes, deal with a lot of setbacks and whatnot? And how do they recover from it?
I deal with setbacks as well. And you kind of get down for a little bit, but don't stay there. Don't stay down for too long. If it's really in your heart, you will know it. And if you feel you want to pursue it, pursue it. Don't dismiss it. Always pursue what's in your heart because you'll find another way. If you get a setback, that's okay. Maybe that setback taught you something. And then you go in a new direction. You pivot and go in a new direction. And you never know, right? You never know what's going to come to you in life. So keep pursuing.
Sounds good, Sandy. Thank you so much for coming on the Next in Time podcast and looking forward to seeing how the Good Eggs Foundation can really make a massive impact in the coming years.
Thanks, ST. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.